Just Matt Standards, we're watching some possible severe weather to arrive Friday morning. We want to talk about the timing of when the storms will hit, and let's talk about the atmosphere. How's it doing? How is this complex going to go and evolve as it pushes off towards the south and east? Couple things. Storm track is right over us again. Gave us extra clouds today. Kept us a little bit cooler. It's still very warm outside, and it's extra humid too. Do you notice the humidity seemed to go up just a little bit? And when you look at the dew points, they did just a touch. But we're watching this next complex come in. We're live on all our platforms. We're finishing up getting everything set up, so I'm going to finish that. But I want to show you the complex of storms is off towards our north and west right now. That's the thing sitting there in western Kansas is trying to get out of Colorado, but it's headed to us next. It's going to push across the rest of the plains tonight, dumping some good rainfall across Kansas, and then come into parts of northeast Oklahoma before diving south and east into northwest Arkansas and the River Valley too. So we want to give you an update on the latest time, and we have a couple new updates this evening as more data starts to flow in. So I think we've got about everything good to go. All right, so what you're watching is this complex. We've actually had a couple flash flood warnings, in fact, multiple flash flood warnings in western Kansas, eastern Colorado. Some of these storms haven't moved very much. This storm track is not just blazing fast. There is a jet stream. It's slow. There's almost no wind when you go north or south. So this is where the jet stream is, and it's helping to carry this active weather across Kansas and into parts of northeast Oklahoma and northwest Arkansas by tomorrow morning. I want to show you what it looks like when we zoom in just a little bit closer. Here's a closer view. You see those storms coming in Dodge City. You see tornado warning there, southeastern Colorado. We're watching also this little shower. This thing is probably going to dissipate. I don't expect much out of this, but we're starting to see a couple more cells develop ahead of this main line. Right now, we're not watching a massive just windstorm push on through. What we've been watching are these hailstorms, and then now they've really been raining out. This is really turned into a rainstorm, but over time, I think this complex that you see that has a lot of hailstorms and now has rotation, new tornado warning now coming out. What will likely happen is this will become the main event. I think some of these showers will eventually start to fall apart just a little bit. This complex should start to race across northern Oklahoma and then come towards northwest Arkansas by tomorrow morning, albeit a little bit later. So when you're looking at some of the timing, you know, this thing is roughly moving about 40 miles per hour. So went ahead and put that track into the computer calculation, and so you can see it coming in northeast Oklahoma there in T-Town, 441, but 6:30 in Fayetteville, so that may be a little bit later than we originally thought. We were thinking more around 4-5. It might be more 5-6 starting to cross the state line. Checking with meteorologist Stephen Abshire early tomorrow morning. He'll show you that complex. It'll be sitting in northeast Oklahoma. We'll have a much better track because these systems do speed up and slow down a little bit. But right now, it's really going to be watching the southern end that's going to help dominate this whole system as it dives to the south and east. This one has the best access to southerly winds, which we still have across much of the mid-south and the plains too. But tell you what, after this complex moves through, guys, we've got north winds coming in tomorrow. It's going to be glorious and beautiful. Right now, we are dry across 5 country. Not a lot going on. It's still warm. 80s and still sitting at 90 degrees in Fort Smith. We got our newscast at 10. We'll see if we're still sitting at 90 there at 10 o'clock. But 88 in Poto, 82 in Clarksville. So, of course, we've got the humidity. We've got the heat in place. Here's taking a look at that humidity. We're up to 82. That's one of the highest that I've seen throughout the day across the country. That's some extreme humidity there. 79 for that dew point in Poto. This is what registers how much moisture is in the atmosphere. As soon as you even hit the 70s, you're considered tropical. Upper 70s, 80s, that's super extra tropical. In fact, we're a little bit more humid technically than parts of the shores of Florida right now. It's sticky out there. So when we're watching the severe threat tonight, we're still watching the storms to the north and west. As they get to central Oklahoma, they will start to fade, and they'll start to weaken once they get in Arkansas too. We are not under the main risk for severe weather. We don't want to hype this thing up. This isn't going to be a huge severe weather event for us. But there will be the potential for some parts of this complex to still have a good amount of wind as it's coming in from Oklahoma to Arkansas. Anything changes tomorrow morning, we're going to let you know. But right now, we're going to be watching them weaken as they push towards us. But they could still have some extra oomph. And sometimes you can get a storm that collapses, and that may send out one final push of wind. We've seen that where that takes place, and it knocks down trees and knocks down some power lines and causes power outages. So we'll have to watch for those storms if they do try to collapse. But they will be moving south and east over time. So when you take a closer look at 5 country, level 1 for most of us, from Poto northbound, level 1, level 2, as soon as you cross into green country, especially coming out of Siloam Springs, coming out of Lincoln, headed west towards Tahlequah, Little Kansas, Miami, Bonita, and Tulsa. All right, so let's take a look at Futurecast. I want to show you some new data that's starting to come in. And this data will be kind of back and forth the next several hours. Computer simulations trying to get the fine details, but just to be honest, they really can't. But we can tell you that this complex will continue to move south and east. But once it gets here, it's not in the best time of day for storms. So that's why we also continue to just weaken things as we push on through. There could be an isolated something that tries to pop up there around 4 or 5 o'clock, but then that complex gets a little bit closer. Now notice it's kind of wonky in its organization. There's really not a lot of organization. We're going to be watching these downpours move in. We'll have to see if one of these storms to the west starts to form a little bit of a line, because that could be causing some nasty winds. But if we just get kind of cells like this, those just be really good downpours and some good thunder and lightning. You get something like this, that means we're going to have some wind. So we'll see if that takes place. Most likely, it'll still be on the weakening trend as it pushes on through. Sometimes these storms cycle in the morning, but by 9, 10, 11 o'clock, and especially if we have a lot of clouds in the morning, the atmosphere is kind of juiced. If we don't get some sun before these storms, which we're probably not going to get a lot of sun before these storms. In fact, most of the time will be mostly cloudy tomorrow morning. We're going to be watching these storms collapse, which would be a good thing. So you're watching scattered storms hit us. Now, since the storm track is kind of sitting more over northwest Arkansas, remember that jet stream that we were looking at with those earlier maps? It's really for northwest Arkansas. Those storms want to follow that as best they can. Sometimes they meander a little bit, so we'll watch for that in the morning. But generally, the best guess would be to keep it close to that storm track, and so that means more rainfall in northwest Arkansas than the River Valley, but we're still expecting a good chance for some scattered downpours tomorrow morning south of I-40. Here's 3 o'clock. We're wrapping things up. Northwest winds coming on through, little front pushing on through. That'll be nice. In fact, the north winds will increase a little bit. We may spend the rest of the day in some 70s and 80s. I went ahead and put an 80 for parts of northwest Arkansas, just because even if you can get some sun starting at 4 o'clock, we've seen days where the temperature jumps really quick. I know we'll have some rainfall beforehand, which kind of limits things a little bit, but you got to watch that sun angle. It's really high this time of year. In Fort Smith, went ahead to go with the mid-80s because it just really depends. Depending on how much rainfall we get and how much sunlight we get, notice how the temperatures are kind of all over the place in the computer simulations. Went ahead and put some mid-80s just to account for the sun starting to come back out and trying to heat at us last minute throughout your Friday afternoon. But it's going to still be a lot cooler than we've been, so that's some good news. Whether we're low 80s, mid 80s, we'll take the 80s. Here's a look at your rain chances for your Friday morning. The best chance of rain, of course, will still be in Oklahoma as the storms are still pushing on through. And then we've kind of reduced those rain chances the farther east you go, just because those storms should start to weaken just a bit and collapse just a bit over time. Here's your late afternoon forecast. Still an isolated shower possible, but we're going to start pushing this rain really east of us by 1, 2, 3 o'clock. So if you get a stray shower, you're kind of maybe unlucky or lucky, depending on how you look at it, but they'll start to push on out, and the weekend looks a lot drier. Here's another way to look at the rain chances. The bulk of them, of course, in the morning. Went ahead and increased the rain chances for 9, 10, 11 o'clock because this complex may linger a little bit depending on how it comes in. It's a pretty big complex. It's not just one line that hits you and then you're done. It's got a lot of different parameters to it. It's got a couple different lift points, and so we're watching multiple rain bands kind of form. Of course, they will be weakening as they move in, but we went ahead and just increased that a little bit. So I would say anywhere from sunrise to lunchtime, you got to watch out for some scattered storms, especially the farther north you live. So how much rain are we going to get out of this once this system pushes on through? Hard to say because it's hard to figure out where the exact downpours will be, but I would probably give a best guess in northwest Arkansas. Let's say the majority of us try to get about a ½ inch. And in the River Valley, let's aim for about a ¼ inch or so. But of course, where the downpours hit, there could be more. There could be some of us that even get 1 inch or so, depending on where the strongest storms are. And then this weekend, we're dry. North winds for your Saturday. So we're going to keep the north winds Friday and Saturday, 2 days. It's great. By Sunday, the south wind starts to come back. And of course, it's July. We'll warm right back up. But we'll enjoy the 80s throughout your Friday and Saturday. That's good news. We're doing a lot better in the rainfall department, too. Drought monitor shows we still have a level 1 drought in Carroll County. In much of 5 country, we've eliminated the drought. You do see the yellow colors, shows you just abnormally dry conditions, but not officially a drought. So we've eliminated the drought in the River Valley. So some of these recent rains have really helped. Of course, it doesn't help when you get some of these windstorms that try to pass on through and they knock out power, especially this time of year when it's nice and toasty and humid. So here's your 7-day forecast. Got to watch out for storms Friday morning. By the afternoon, we start to dry out. And lots of sun the next several days. I think our next rain chance won't come until this coming Thursday. So get a nice dry period in there, and we'll start to warm back up. This weekend, though, I can tell you what, it's going to be beautiful for July, having upper 80s, low 90s. You don't have to worry about the rain. The humidity will be a little bit lower, especially Saturday with that north wind. So that's some good news. But real quick, right before Darren and Alexandra are just about to walk in here, let's show you the radar one more time. There's that storm complex. It's going to follow the storm track, the jet stream, right into us for tomorrow morning. Lots of different parts to this. This is the strongest part. This is the one that's going to try to keep alive the longest, but there'll also be just scattered rain and downpours. And we could get something like this in the morning, and we'll have to see if later in the morning this parts of the complex starts to move on through. But once again, it's roughly moving about 40 miles per hour. That's going to change over time, of course, tonight. Sometimes it's going to drop to 35. Sometimes kind of picked up to 45 or 50. So that'll change the timing. But we're trying to look towards the timing around coming into parts of western Arkansas around 6, 7 o'clock. So for that morning commute, there could be some stormy skies starting to move in. We're in a low-level severe threat, so not everyone's going to get severe weather. But a lot of us should at least get some scattered rain and maybe a few rumbles of thunder. We're going to have our newscast here in a couple minutes. I'll show you a couple more things coming up here in a few minutes with Darren and Alexandra. And of course, tomorrow morning, checking with meteorologist Stephen Abshire. He'll show you that complex. It'll be sitting in Tulsa. It'll give you the newest timeline of when it will arrive to your county. Make sure you keep it here. Keep it local. As always, we'll keep you advised.